This is One on One. Georgine Theodore is Associate Professor at NJIT and also Principal, Interboro Partners. Good to have you with us.
Nice to be here.
You're an architect and urban designer by background. You study some fascinating things, particularly at a time post-Hurricane Sandy. Mm-hmm. People think, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. I bet you believe it happened, right?
Yes.
Because?
Well, the world is changing. We have an incredible increase in these extreme weather events. We have sea level rise. And then we also have an unsustainable pattern of urbanization that really has affected the way that water moves, and that's put a lot of communities at risk.
So what impact does that have on the work that urban planners do, that architects do, mm-hmm. in terms of what is built, how it is built, mm-hmm. and how it needs to be built to protect the rest of us?
Yeah. Well,
loaded question, I know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a very exciting time to be an architect who's dealing with large-scale design issues, because these challenges that we're talking about, they're very, very complex, and there's not just one silver bullet solution. It's not like you can just put, gates along the bay and then everyone is going to be safe. And so I think that right now it really requires a certain type of thinking that is systems-based, that allows us to sort of look at the complexity of all of these different urban systems working together in relationship to these major climate change issues.
I know that sounds fascinating, but break it down from a more practical example, because mm-hmm. I will tell you that post-Hurricane Sandy, mm-hmm. I said, oh, wow, look, it just means, I guess, you're just not supposed to develop mm-hmm. in certain parts of the world or the state. But then I turned around and I said, without going into a lot of detail, we're building down at the Jersey Shore mm-hmm. a home. And I said, well, you go really high. Mm-hmm. But it's not that simple.
Right.
Because then I thought, well, maybe we're not supposed to be here.
Right.
Maybe you're just not supposed to build businesses and homes in certain places.
Yeah.
Is it that simple?
It's not that simple, because we have hundreds of thousands of people that are living in very vulnerable areas, and we can't just leave those places immediately, although the long-term prospects...
Should we be saying, you know what, there's a whole bunch of places we shouldn't have been building, and we can't get you out of there right away, but long-term, we're going to get you out of there, and we're going to say you can't build there?
Mm-hmm. There are plenty of people who say that, and I think it's reasonable to say that kind of thing, but when you talk to people who have their homes in these areas and they have their memories, it's very hard to imagine an immediate retreat. The work that I've been doing with my partners at Interboro Partners in New York as part of the Rebuild by Design initiative is we've actually been looking at a large number of these areas, these communities in our region, where there is a very sort of, there are a lot of people who live there, they have their homes, and we're looking we have developed strategies that for the sort of the short term will allow these communities to adapt.
Give me one example.
We just received a project, initiative that we had developed has just received funding from HUD to...
Housing and Urban...
Yes.
Federal government.
Yes.
Housing and Urban Development comes in and says, here's money to do what?
Well, we are working on the Mill River, which is a tributary river that sort of goes north-south and empties into a bay. And what we found is that the communities along the bay are...
What are we looking at right there? That picture
yes,
right there.
Yes, exactly, right. It's a community that was really, really hard hit during the storm, and many of the homes along this water's edge were inundated, many were destroyed. And what we discovered with our team, which is a combination of architects, planners, hydrologists, water engineers, was that the communities that are along these bays and along these rivers, they're vulnerable because storms come in and the water rises, but also they're vulnerable because sea level is rising. But they're also vulnerable because these tributaries are where all of the urban stormwater comes down from the sort of the developed regions. And so in a situation where you have multiple threats. They have to do with sea level rise, with storms, but also with the management of urban water. And on top of that, you have major degradation of these sort of these water channels because the water's not filtered, and the water that comes across the land sort of moves down the river and gets dumped directly into the bay.
So what should we be doing?
Well, what we've proposed is to have a series of interventions. One is to have a series of sluices that are gates, tidal gates, so that when a storm comes and the surge pushes up, the gate can be closed. And so the communities that are sort of on the upland side are protected. But that's not enough. And we're also looking to increase the water retention, along the river's edge. And we can do that in a way that is not only dealing with the water, have pools that sort of hold the water so that it doesn't move upland, but you can also do it in a way that it enhances the quality of everyday life. You can sort of increase the recreational value of those areas. And finally, we're also looking further upland and increasing sort of introducing stormwater management measures, which are like, say, rain gardens or bioswales. These are...
What's a bioswale?
A bioswale, yeah. I'm not using too many technical terms.
Well, it is hard to follow.
Yeah. Okay.
And so it's not a question of too many, but a bioswale is?
A bioswale is like a bed, sort of a planted bed that could be along a sidewalk or a street that is planted, so it can be very attractive. But what it does is that when you have a major rain event, instead of having all of the water rush off all of the parking lots and the driveways and the streets and overwhelm the stormwater system and go directly into the rivers.
Is that what we're looking at right there?
Yes, exactly.
See?
Right, and so what you see is that there's a like a kind of a bed that can hold water during these events, and it slows the water down. And that's what this project, the images that you've shown, we call it sort of slow streams, because it's about slowing the water down, slowing the water when it's sort of when it moves in on a storm, but also slowing the water when it comes down.
So quickly, the work that you're doing is largely about realizing that these changes in the climate, it's only going to get more challenging for us, and if we don't prepare for them, we're going to experience more devastation.
Right.
We've got to do these things.
Yes, we have to, and that's why, Rebuild by Design, which was this initiative that was started by the president and then spearheaded by the Secretary Sean Donovan. It's really an important...
Secretary at HUD.
Secretary at HUD, yes. It's a really, I think, groundbreaking initiative, because what it's saying is that we have to change the way that we are rebuilding. We can't rebuild exactly what was there before. And there's an opportunity now to sort of think about how you can rebuild in a way that's better, that sort of builds resiliency. But what we're doing with our work is we're trying to not only sort of solve the problems related to climate change, but if you're going to make these kinds of investments, we should make investments that work on the sort of the non-extreme sort of event days. These are investments that work on two levels. On the one hand, to deal with the vulnerability of water, but at the same time, our investments into the quality of everyday life in the communities in our region.
Well, Georgine, this is important stuff, and that's why we like to have you and your colleagues at NJIT coming on and talking about them, because sometimes it may be hard to follow the technical terms, but I will say that what you're talking about matters to all of us. So I want to thank you for joining us.
Well, I want to thank you for this opportunity. It's really just a pleasure to be here and a great honor.
Good to have you. Good
Thank
stuff.
you.
Stay with us. One-on-One will continue right after this.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by AmeriHealth Caritas, parent company of Perform Care, TD Bank, Johnson & Johnson, New Jersey Sharing Network, NJM, Choose New Jersey, and by Community Education Centers. Promotional support provided by The Record, North Jersey's trusted source, and NorthJersey.com, and by Commerce Magazine. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.